So, now the ruins come out. How are we holding up, Laporte lovers? I'll save my overall thoughts about the DLC itself for another time, but it's not a lie to say that Ruin has provided a necessary shake-up to Security Breach's story, giving fans a clearer follow-up on what happened to the Pizzaplex and the animatronics after Gregory escaped, as well as a few secret items and hidden areas. What would a FNaF game be without secrets? But I don't think that anyone was expecting to have this be the reward for finding and disabling all the wet floor signs in the DLC. Poor Bonnie. It's a sad sight, and it certainly wasn't the closure I was hoping for. At the very least, it's nice to finally know what happened to him. Now, as was expected, a lot of people's first reactions after seeing him in this condition was the very reasonable, "I can't believe that Monty did this!" And I can't blame you, because I had the same thought. The scene paints a very vivid picture with the massive damage in Bonnie's chest caused by huge claws, the crack in the wall, and the broken bowling ball next to his head. This was definitely caused by someone who wanted to get rid of Bonnie. And who replaced him in the main lineup? Montgomery Gator. It seems like an open and shut case. It's been a very popular theory ever since Security Breach came out that Monty had it out for him. Monty was jealous of Bonnie's popularity and attacked him. Once Bonnie was out of the way, management decided it would be cheaper to replace him than repair him. Right? Wrong. I believe that Monty was framed. Maybe not by the game, but certainly by something. Before we go pointing any fingers, let's explore all the evidence towards Bonnie's disappearance in the base game. You might remember that much of Security Breach proper's character and background lore came from collectible messages that Gregory would find in big duffel bags around the Pizzaplex. Some of it is just cute things about the characters, like this particular memo about Chica being addicted to a slushy syrup that happens to taste like pizza. Another is a commentary about the horrors of the corporate workplace and how sometimes technology isn't always the most moral solution. My personal favorite nod to the older games comes from a memo labeled, "It is happening again." As far as Glimrock Bonnie is concerned, though, there's only a handful of memos about him in the entire game. The one that's located in Roxy Raceway is called Retheme. Management report. The bowling alley needs a retheme. While most of the Bonnie art was removed, kids kept asking, "Where's Bonnie?" Do we have an officially approved response? This suggests that whatever happened to Bonnie was sudden enough that they don't quite know how to talk to the kids about it. If they knew that Bonnie was fine or had been retired, employees could have probably said something about him being on vacation. But the subject of the retheme cements the fact that Bonnie's not going to be coming back to the band. So what does the other memo tell us about how much the management knew? The second memo, titled Missing, can be found in the maintenance tunnels. It's a security report and is presumably the last time Bonnie was ever seen. Security report, 12:24 a.m. Bonnie is seen leaving his green room in Rockstar Row heading east towards the atrium. 2:40 a.m. Bonnie enters the East Arcade. 4:12 a.m. Bonnie enters Monty Golf. First off, let me point out that Bonnie spent almost 4 hours getting from Rockstar Row to Monty Golf. There is absolutely no way that the Pizzaplex is so big a walk or that any of the animatronics are that slow getting from point A to point B when walking at a normal pace. I find this note rather suspect. Now, suspicions aside, this message isn't looking great for Monty. The animatronic he ended up replacing was last seen in his area of the Pizzaplex, and for most people, this would be solid enough evidence that Monty was his attacker. After all, in Security Breach, Monty has been shown to be prone to anger and is notably jealous of Freddy. Maybe he wants to be the center of attention and will do anything to get it. I guess, looking at this and the state of Bonnie in ruin, maybe everyone really was right. Maybe Monty really did do it.
Objection!
Is what I would say if we also didn't have this message about Monty himself found in Parts and Services. Maintenance log Monty. Montgomery's claw upgrades allow him to play the bass. Following performances, he mostly uses them to cause damage. The fence repairs are getting costly. This message, as the title suggests, is about an upgrade to Monty's design. It's not about a repair to damaged claws or about reinforcing his claws. It's an upgrade that he previously did not have because he only needed claws after he started performing with the base. Who was the previous bassist? Bonnie. Monty only received the claw upgrades after Bonnie had already been replaced, and we know that his attacker had to have had claws. Ergo, there's no way Monty could have attacked Bonnie because he literally did not have the means to do so. Furthermore, even if Monty had gotten those claw upgrades before Bonnie's attack, let's take a moment to examine these claws. The damage to Bonnie's casing on his chest are long, deep scrapes with green paint. Monty's claws are short and black, and even if dried paint was somehow able to transfer like this to this extent, it would have appeared as black. I think that the green is just an undercoat of paint for Bonnie's chest, because otherwise, if Monty had been the attacker, there would have been a clear message about him suspiciously needing repairs the day after Bonnie went missing, because a whole mass of green is just missing from his arm. There's no way that these claws could have caused this particular damage. I know that the ride we saw about the backstory for Bonnie's retirement and Monty's rise to fame might have been a revisionist history by Fazbear Entertainment to tackle why Bonnie went away. But according to Monty Upgrade, and this message called Monty Mischief, Monty's aggressiveness has only been a recent phenomenon. Found inside of Monty's room, the memo reads as such. Errant behavior report. Monty didn't show up for the main stage performance again. We found him in the same place we always do. The catwalks over Monty Golf. We can't have a repeat of last month. Someone hit the hole-in-one and the hurricane bucket knocked him down. Both legs were broken and required emergency parts and service work. Notice that this memo is not about Monty being incapacitated and incapable of going to the stage. It's about him literally not bothering to show up, since the repair work he needed was simply a past cause of concern. Would someone who wanted attention so badly that he was willing to attack one of his friends be on the record for intentionally skipping those same performances he'd presumably killed for? I think very much not. After reviewing the evidence, it's clear to me that Montgomery Gator couldn't be Glamrock Bonnie's killer. I rest my case! Also, just look at him, he's adorable. If they wanted me to think he was a stone cold killer, then they should have made Monty far less of an Luppy. And yes, while Monty Mischief is mainly supposed to be a hint to Gregory and the player about how to damage Monty, I think it also helps paint a picture about what happened to Bonnie himself. So, if Monty didn't attack Bonnie, who did? There are 6, possibly 7 characters that we know definitively have claws in Security Breach and Ruin. The first is Bonnie, but given how we come across the scene of the crime, it's improbable that he malfunctioned and ended up damaging himself. The second is Monty, who only got claws after he replaced Bonnie as the Glamrock's bassist, and it's noted that he sometimes doesn't bother showing up to the performances he replaced Bonnie for. Even if he did have a motive, he doesn't have the means. Another is Burntrap, who also could not have done it for a variety of reasons, notably because Ruin calls into question whether or not this character is even canon anymore. But to keep things simple, Peepaw here could not have done it because he didn't have the mobility at the time needed to attack an animatronic, much less one that was much bigger and stronger than him. And yes, this also includes Vanny. She is a full human, and there's no way for her to have attacked Bonnie any way you slice it. She doesn't even have claws. Girly doesn't even have her knife anymore. Freddy has claws, but he's the least likely suspect. Not only does Freddy love Bonnie, but the one time that Freddy talks about him, it's a sad admission that he doesn't like going to Bonnie bowling anymore. Ultimately, Freddy is the most trustworthy character in the game, and there's no way he could have done it. You can make a good case for Prototype Freddy if you believe that these are 2 separate characters. Long, sharp claws that he had at the time of the murder, check. Someone that could reasonably get Bonnie to meet him at a certain time, double check. A clear antagonist that is in some way separate from our Freddy? Yeah, sure. Personally, I believe that there's a much more reasonable subject, but he fits just enough criteria that I can't not include him on this list. This leaves us with 2 suspects. Roxy also has claws, and they're even green, but she is as unlikely to be the killer as Freddy. There's no reason whatsoever for her to have attacked Bonnie, and if they wanted us to suspect her, not only would Steelwool have given us some sort of hint in either Security Breach or Ruin, but it would undermine the positive protector role for Cassie that they want us to see her in. So, who does that leave us with? The Mimic. Not only does he have some big claws on his endoskeleton, but his backstory in the books paints a rather grim picture of a character with the intelligence of a young but learning child with a vicious ruthlessness that primarily solves its problems with violence. In the books, its backstory is that once sweet and childlike, after being brutally beaten and infused with remnant, the Mimic has become a cruel killer that has unfortunately made his way into the Pizzaplex and is most definitely responsible for the creation of the Blob. It looks like the Mimic is going to be the main antagonist going forward, at least for the time being, and he fits every single criteria of suspicion for what happened to Bonnie. Large claws, the ability to hide into any suit he wants, a familiarity of the location, a desire to not get caught, and above all else, a willingness to kill. Most importantly for our purposes, Mixie seems to have only been built after the events of Security Breach, judging on the fresh state of the concrete blocking the Mimic's way out of the Pizza Sim location, and the backpack Gregory left behind. Which means that at the time, he still had the mobility to get around the Pizzaplex during the murder. Here's what I think happened. I think Bonnie had already been attacked by the Mimic that night, and was trying to either get away from him or go after him. Remember, the Mimic is able to alter his voice to someone he knows his victim will trust. Either way, Bonnie is lured to Monte Gulf and was attacked one more time. Maybe he was pushed off the catwalk outright, maybe he was whacked off with the hurricane bucket. After that, Bonnie ends up back in the hidden area in the bowling alley, either by being dragged there or because of another chase. And after one last struggle, the Mimic slams him into the wall. The force is hard enough to make the wall crack and is most certainly enough to at least stun Bonnie. Pinning him to the ground, the Mimic grabs the closest thing to him, a bowling ball, and smashes it over Bonnie's head. Using the last amount of power he has, Bonnie sends out a distress signal through the wet floor signs. But no one listens. Not until Cassie is the one to find him, and fully deactivates the animatronic in Ruin. Admittedly, there are a few holes in this theory, like how Bonnie got from Monte Golf to Bonnie Bull, but I think that the Mimic is just as likely of luring or dragging him there to hide the evidence as Monty could be. In fact, the Mimic is probably even more likely, since getting rid of the proof of what happened to Bonnie means that there's no chance of Bonnie being brought back through a different endo and telling anyone what happened. Remember, the reason why Monty replaced Bonnie in the first place was because they couldn't even locate Bonnie's casing. Security Breach has shown that as long as the casing for the animatronic is fine, they can be pretty easily replaced. If you can get rid of the custom casing, it's like rebuilding an entire animatronic from scratch, at least to Faz Entertainment. No way anyone would want to spring for that cost when there's a perfectly good gator you can use instead. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what happened. Bonnie is gone, and the majority of people think Monty did it. Given the evidence, though, I cannot in good conscience perpetuate this narrative. After everything we've seen now from these two games, I think that we've been looking at the wrong animatronic this whole time. And if I'm right, then this was a case of mistaken identity that we as the FNaF community haven't seen since the days of the mic trap theory. Some of you that are watching this have no idea what I'm talking about, and that makes me feel old. Time is the real horror of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Before I finish this video out, I wanted to give a shout out to Tumblr user SholenGaGaGa. Shoken's post was a massive source of inspiration for this video and deserves to have way more eyes on it. I'm going to link it in the description below. What do you think about this explanation? Do you have any other theories about what happened to Bonnie? Feel free to leave them in the comments below, and
have a Fazerific day!